And with that, hello everybody and welcome to College Football Wraparound. I am Cooper Naylor, and I am so glad that you could join us here today for some great college football commentary. So, let me really quickly show you what is going to be happening today here on College Football Wraparound. We're going to start out talking about the Cooper Naylor poll, then we're going to recap week 4. We're going to talk about Herm Edwards and Geoff Collins getting fired. We will be talking about Miami, Florida getting destroyed by Middle Tennessee, which was a shocker. Texas falling to 2-2. That was one of my playoff teams, and clearly they ain't going to be there. The rise of the ACC. And then we're going to talk about USC struggles and Oklahoma's loss. Then we'll recap our week 3 predictions. And let me tell you, Colton did amazing. And then it'll be time to pick this week's games. So, moving on to my poll right here. So, as you can see, you've got Alabama, Ohio State, Tennessee, Georgia, Clemson, Michigan, USC, Oklahoma State, Texas A&M, Arkansas, Penn State, Ole Miss, NC State, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Oregon, Baylor, Mississippi State, Oregon, Florida State, Washington, Syracuse, Kansas State, Iowa State, and Wake Forest. So, folks, what you see here from me is that I am really high on Arkansas to see them lose and only move them down to 10 because I still feel like they played a really good team in Texas A&M. I mean, they played a really good team. And I really do feel like today we're going to figure out a lot about Arkansas against Alabama. They're at least playing at home. And if you look at the way Bama's played on the road this year and last year against really good teams, then it's not great for Bama, even though they've only lost once, and that was to A&M. So, I mean, maybe things will work its way out, but this is going to be Arkansas. If they show up, they're going to be in this game. And then, looking at this, Texas A&M going at Mississippi State's going to be interesting. Ohio State and Rutgers. Ohio State's just got to take care of business because this could be one of those games where if Ohio State comes in lackadaisical, then Rutgers could beat them at the shoe. Trust me, I think that is a possibility. And then Tennessee just gets a bye week. I mean, you look at the way they beat Florida for the first, before going into this game, they had lost 16 out of the last 17 times to Florida. Beat them at home. Almost let that game slip from their hands, but they survived. Georgia survived as well. Even though they were playing Kent State, they allowed 22 points to Kent State. And in the first 3 games combined, they only allowed 10 points, folks. 10. So, what you see here is this is going to be something to keep your eye on. College football's wide open, it looks like. So, I guess it's time to just move on to better things. But I want to start today and really discuss what is going on. And so a recap of week 4 is basically what I've given you just now. So let's move on to Herm Edwards and Geoff Collins getting fired. I mean, first of all, let's start with Herm Edwards. Now, Arizona State was really kind of a laughing stock in college football before Herm Edwards got there. Once Herm got there and they had a great quarterback, I think his name's Jayden Daniels, who transferred to LSU. Let me check that for just a second because I think that's really important. Because, yes, so Jayden Daniels was the starting quarterback for Arizona State for for years, and he did a really good job for them. Arizona State had gone to a place where it looked like they were actually a pretty decent football team. You got to this year, and you had a bunch of stuff come out within the team, and that's just where everything kind of went down, and Herm Edwards is out of a job. Then you get to Geoff Collins at Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech really just didn't do anything while Geoff Collins was the coach. So that was the demise of Geoff Collins. But both guys, I feel like the programs had a really good chance. If you really look at the way these teams played, I mean, there were moments where you could say, this looks like a decent football team that just cannot pull out a win. And that's more the Georgia Tech side because they just could not win with Geoff Collins. That was just the bottom line, is that they were just not very good. But they had a chance at one point to be really good. They just couldn't do it. And, I mean, you go back a couple years ago, they went to Clemson, and they played Clemson really close, almost coming out with a win against the Tigers. I mean, that's impressive. I mean, you're looking at Clemson, who is right now the alpha male in the ACC. Of course, last year they had a little bit of a stumble from that position. Of course, Wake Forest got their spot to the ACC title game. Pitt capitalizing and winning the ACC title game. And I mean, if you watched Wake Forest play Clemson this past weekend, that was an incredible football game that went to overtime. I mean, really. And, you know, Georgia Tech really had Clemson on the ropes a couple years ago. And it was incredible to see, but again, I mean, Georgia Tech just could not produce a winning culture there. And then with Herm Edwards, it was just, they had decent football teams these last few years. You just get all these allegations, and then that just hurts the culture of the team. So, I mean, you can't say anything else but, you know, Arizona State kind of ruined it for themselves when it comes to Herm Edwards. So, now I want to move on to Miami, Florida getting destroyed by Middle Tennessee. This was a game that really was not close from the get-go. I mean, Middle Tennessee just proved its dominance. And, I mean, they ran all over Miami. I mean, the quarterback for Middle Tennessee, he played a great game. And, I mean, this was just incredible to see. Chase Cunningham, their quarterback, he had an incredible game, and it was impressive to really look at the way they just dominated Miami. It was really impressive. Folks, that was a very dominant performance from the Blue Raiders. And, I mean, if you're Miami, that has just got to stink. You're at home. You just lost to Texas A&M. So you got that taste in your mouth. And then you let Middle Tennessee come into your house and make a fool of you. That is not good. And that is poor football from the standpoint of you're Miami and you just lost to Middle Tennessee. You just lost 2 straight games. You just went from being 2-0 and having a bright season, it looked like, to now you are awful. I mean, really awful. But who knows? They could have a resurgence this season. We will see. But this is just the first year of Mario Cristobal. There are a lot more opportunities for Miami. And I mean, there's a lot of other teams. I still feel like, there's still a lot more football to be played this season. So we will see what will be happening with these teams. But, it's not entirely time to count Miami or Texas or Notre Dame. Or there are a bunch of teams out here that really got a poor start that, it's not entirely time to count them out yet. Now, when we get to after there's about 8 games played, we know what these teams are. We only have just a part of the season over with already. I mean, this is a third of the season that's already over with, folks. There's 12 games in a season in college football, and we've got a third already over with. And that is crazy to think about, that 4 games is a lot for college football. Now, if you're one of these teams that go to the playoff every year, then this is just the beginning. I mean, really. But, I mean, Miami could still make it to a New Year's Six bowl, but we will see what happens with them. Of course, I still think they have a promising future. I just think they just got the rails beat out of them by Middle Tennessee, and it's impressive to see. And so we'll just see what happens the rest of the way for Miami. All right, so Texas has fallen to 2-2. They lost in overtime to Texas Tech. Now, let me tell you, Texas has been in every game they've played so far. I mean, you had Alabama at home. You had them beat, basically, because I'm being honest. Alabama, the way they played, should not have won the game. I mean, a lot of people may be questioning me because I'm an Alabama fan, and how much of an Alabama fan am I? Well, let me tell you. Here's the thing. Texas played good enough to win that football game. They just could not pull it out at the end. And let me tell you, Bryce Young single-handedly brought this team back in the fourth quarter. When this team seemed like they were dead and gone, it was Bryce Young who saved the day. So, what are the issues that Alabama faces, which we will get into a little bit later? But Texas lost to Texas Tech in overtime, 37-34. And really, I'm being honest here. Texas looks like a really good football team, in my opinion. They just have lost 2 games where they were in the game. They were in the game. Can you really make out a case where Texas is the worst football team in the Big 12? No. Why? Because look, let's just be honest here. They played Alabama really close, and they played Texas Tech close, and they got 2 other wins, which don't mean a lot right now. But in the long run, though, I think they're a really good football team. It's early in the season. There's still a lot of football to be played. I mean, I'll be honest. I think Texas looks better than Miami. At least Texas doesn't get the rails beat out of them by a Middle Tennessee at home. Texas, at least, even though they were down, at a point to UTSA. At least they came back and won the game. I mean, let's be honest. Sometimes it's not the way that you look. As long as you win the game, that's all that matters. And Texas has won those games, but they have lost. So that overshadows the wins, is those losses to Alabama and Texas Tech. Now, I still think they have... I still think that they are right in the thick of things in the Big 12. They could still make a run at the Big 12 championship game, and most likely it's going to be against Oklahoma. If we're being completely honest here, you're most likely going to see Oklahoma there in the Big 12 championship game. And Texas could still be there. You never know. All right. Now let's turn our attentions to the rise of the ACC. Clemson is number 5 currently in the rankings. Wake Forest looked really good against them. NC State's looking really good. The ACC has a lot of good football. Florida State this season. Florida State is back. That's my opinion. I think they are back. I put them in my rankings for a reason, folks. But, really, I believe that there's a lot to be said for the ACC. Because out of the last few years, they have struggled. I feel like they've really ramped it up this season. They've really looked really decent. If you go look at Florida State, man, this team has got 3 running backs that they can go to, and they all could be starters on Sunday. Let's be honest here. Florida State is a pound it down your throat, and then you've got that tall receiver for Florida State. They can just throw it up and let that tall receiver go get it, and man, that is such a great combination if you are a team like Florida State who has been down in the dumps these last few years and trying to get back. Really, that is a huge lifesaver right there. Really. That goes a long way, folks. Clemson looks much better this season, still kind of struggling a little bit, but they're winning football games, folks, and they got a big one against NC State coming up today, and we'll see how good Clemson is. Wake Forest, I'm being honest, it is Sam Hartman who has done a really great job since coming back from his health issues. So we'll just see what happens. But the ACC has looked really good. All right, everybody. So a recap of our Week 3 predictions. I went 6-4 once again in Week 3, and I need to address that the reason why we did not come on last week is because we were on vacation, and I kind of didn't pack everything I needed for broadcasting down there, so I didn't have a chance to, but that was on me. So, of course, we'll see what happens the next trip I take, if I'll have a chance, if I doing broadcasts, but, it's all in the past now. So Week 3, I went 6-4. Colton, goodness, 8-2. If you look at the overall records, Colton is by far outdoing me. Even though I've done picks 1 week more, the percentages are more in his favor, I would say. Really, I'm not doing great compared to him, in my opinion. So, I got to pick it up. So, we'll just see what happens. Of course, 6-4. I guess that's where I keep landing. All right, so it's time to pick the games. Here we go. First one, Oklahoma at TCU. I'm going to take Oklahoma. I mean, they just lost to Kansas State at home. They do not want to lose again. I mean, that is just the bottom line here. Oklahoma's wanting to get a win, and they're going to do it. They are going to win that football game, and they're going to do it convincingly, folks. So Oklahoma wins convincingly at TCU. All right, Georgia Southern at Coastal Carolina. Now, Coastal Carolina has gone under the radar, folks. They are undefeated at 4-0, going against the 3-1 Georgia Southern team. And I'm being honest, this is a really interesting game coming out of the Sun Belt. I mean, we'll see what kind of conditions the field is for tomorrow here today. Of course, with Hurricane Ian coming through that area. We'll see what happens. But I'm telling you, I'm going to go Coastal Carolina here. They have really gone under the radar, and I'm shocked about that. All right, LSU at Auburn. This one is the Tigers against the Tigers. And Brian Harsin's job is on the line, folks. I mean, second straight week that Auburn has hosted a team that is called the Tigers that will be playing at the Plains at Auburn. And Auburn, let's be honest, I mean, they looked bad against Missouri. I mean, had Missouri made that field goal in regulation, Auburn would have lost that game, and Brian Harsin probably was out the door. That's probably what would have happened. So I still feel like this could be a situation where if LSU wins this football game, Harsin may be gone. I mean, it's a possibility. And I'll be honest, the only reason why you're hearing anything about Harsin being gone is because the fans and the boosters, this was not the guy that they wanted when Alan Green hired him. That's all this is. It's not that he hasn't been a good coach, which, I mean, let's be honest, he hasn't had much to work with at Auburn. And it takes more than just 2 years to build a team, but Auburn's not going to give him that chance. So, LSU, I'm going LSU. I just think Auburn's terrible this football season, and LSU's going to win it today. So, all right, Illinois at Wisconsin. I'm going to go Illinois. Wisconsin has looked terrible this season, and I just feel like this is just not their season. I'm going to go Illinois, though, because I think Brett Bielema is doing a good job there. Oregon State at Utah. And, folks, I think I'm going to go Utah here. Since that game against Florida, they have came back and done a pretty good job. Although Oregon State did take USC to a struggle, it was interesting to watch. So, I'm going to go Utah. Wake Forest at Florida State. I'm going to go Florida State here. I like what Florida State's done this season, and I think they'll continue to roll on. Oklahoma State at Baylor. I like Oklahoma State here. Coming off a bye week, I feel like they just have the upper hand here. And plus, they want to get that bad taste of the Big 12 championship out of their mouth. So I'm going to go Oklahoma State here. Kentucky at Ole Miss, which could be the best game of the day. And I'm going to go Kentucky here because I feel like the uncertainty between quarterbacks at Ole Miss, between Altmaier and Dart, is really the thing that pushes me to Kentucky, because I want to see who is going to be that guy for Ole Miss, whereas Kentucky got the guy, Will Levis. So, Kentucky wins the game. Alabama at Arkansas. I'm going Alabama. I feel like they'd find a way to pull it out at the end, but it's going to be a struggle. And finally, NC State at Clemson, our game of the week. Clemson's going to win at home. They don't lose very much at home. So, well, that is it, folks, for college football wraparound this week. I'm Cooper Naylor. I'm thanking you for watching. We'll see you next week.